Hi Necromolds Kickstarter backers and late pledge supporters. My name is Clint Bohati and this video is for Kickstarter campaign update number 6. And if you haven't seen that update yet, it just went live today, so be sure to check it out because it has a lot of very important information for you. And then it also has a lot of really fun sneak peeks at artwork and other things that we've been working on for the last month and a half for Necromolds. So be sure to check it out. And of course, if you have any questions on what you see in this video or any questions in that for that Kickstarter update, just be sure to drop me a message or leave a comment and I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. But this video is all about what I've been working on for the last month and a half, which are the Necromolds plastic files, which I'm gesturing to, but you can't see on my table. And those things include the wound markers, they include the artifacts, they include the banners, and they include the Necromolds Spellbooks, the 5 new spellbooks that we are releasing with this Kickstarter campaign. So I'm going to show off all those things, and before I do, I also want to talk a little bit about the other things that have been going on. So we've been working on artwork for the lore book, which you can see a little bit of some of the artwork that's used in the lore book in the Kickstarter update. And we've also been working on artwork for the collector's edition sleeve, which anyone who backed at the I want the new stuff or I want everything pledge levels will get a copy of. So check those out in the Kickstarter update. And while those things have been going on, as well as some other graphic design parts of the project, my main focus has been working on these plastic files. And the reason I wanted to work on them so soon and the first part of getting the production files ready is because they're the most challenging, they're the most tedious, they're probably the least amount of fun because it's a lot of tedious tweaking to get these files ready. And it's also important that the manufacturer gets these files as soon as possible because that means that they can start approving them and then building the tool, which is a steel mold that they'll use to basically injection mold the plastic for these spellbooks and for all these components. So our spellbook is a mold, and it takes a steel mold to make the plastic mold, which then you put the clay in and you make a necromold. So a lot of molds, a lot of plastics. Let's start looking at the spellbooks. Or actually, before we go to the spellbooks, I'm going to show off the weapons. So one of the important things with what I've been working on is making sure that all of our components are ready for injection molding. And injection molding has some really specific requirements when it comes to plastic thickness, when it comes to draft and other elements of the industrial design of these components and spellbooks. So I went through and kind of double-checked all the sizing to make sure that I felt happy with the size and the look of all of our wound markers. So these are all prototype prints that I printed on a resin printer. So they're not made out of the final plastic, which will have a little bit of flex to it. They're obviously not the final production color, but at least it is the manufacturing ready model. So the final plastic should look very similar to this. So here's our little wound dagger. Here is our axe. This is one that I shrunk just a little bit just to make it fit in a little bit better with the rest of the wound markers and to feel a little better when you're using them. Then we've got, it's kind of a bit of a pole arm here, kind of in like the Blood Mump style, if you've seen the Blood Mump illustration. So we've got our pole arm there. Then we've got a short sword. So, whoops, there's our short sword. And these will all be red. It's kind of like this blood red plastic is the color that I'm using for these wound markers, which matches the wound dice that you've probably seen in our Kickstarter campaign video or page. Whoops, that is not the right sword. That is not a wound marker. Here we go. Another wound marker. This is kind of a long sword. And let me see if there's any other. I think that is all 5. So yeah, so that's all 5 wound markers. So not, probably as far as the plastics go, the least exciting part of the plastic design that I've been working on. It's mostly going through and looking at all these little wound markers, making sure that the size looks right when you stick them into the necromold monster. And yeah, just making sure that I'm happy with the design and that there's no sharp edges so that they're safe for kids and families to play with. And like I said, the final plastics will have a little bit of flex to them as well. So all of the wound markers have been finalized, and that includes all 5 designs that were unlocked during the Kickstarter campaign. And the Call to Arms box has 10 of those total, so 2 of each design that I just showed off. The next thing I'm going to go through is, let's do this one next. I'm going to do the banners. So here is let me go ahead and switch over to my camera. Here's the banner that you've seen in the, where are we? There we go. This is the prototype of the banner that you've seen in the Kickstarter video as well as the campaign page. And originally I was just planning on having one banner design that each monster army wields. But as I was going through and working on this, I decided that it'd be a lot cooler if we had 2 banner designs. So in a 2-player game, each player has a unique banner that they're carrying into the battlefield. So this is the prototype of the second banner. So this is a brand new banner. Wasn't a stretch goal. It was just something that I wanted to add to the game because I felt like it would be even more rad if I did. So new banner, previous banner, both banners included in the Necromolds Call to Arms expansion. So both armies will have their own unique banner. So that's also mentioned in the Kickstarter update number 6. So that's kind of a fun new addition to the game. Now let's talk about the Necromolds Spellbooks. And something that there we go. I'm going to switch back over so you don't have to stare at my video editing keyboard. The Necromolds Spellbooks were a huge undertaking because anyone who's played the original Necromolds, the first printed Necromolds, knows that one of the most satisfying parts of the setup process is actually, molding your monster, throwing clay in there, squishing it, and then peeling out a nice-looking, well-molded Necromold monster that eventually you will smash on the battlefield. So to do that, first we had to actually make the model, which, all the models were made for the Kickstarter campaign, so that work was already done. And then obviously I had taken those models and put them in the spellbooks. But the last 10% of that part of the process is the polishing and making sure that those files are ready for manufacturing, and also making sure that the monster volumes match well with the skills and the abilities that we want those monsters to have in the game design. So basically I went through, had to rebuild all of our Series 1X spellbooks, do some prototyping, multiple prints of all of them with a lot of little adjustments, but the final spellbooks look fantastic. And this is the first time I've done this, I'm going to go through and live mold all the new monsters for you in this video. So let me switch my camera back over. So the first spellbook I'm going to show off is right here. And these, again, are just the prototypes that I printed myself at home, just on my commercial resin printer. But the spellbook page in here is the prototype, and then I'm just using an actual Necromolds plastic spellbook cover to contain it. But obviously it doesn't have the stickers and stuff on there yet. So there is that. Let me move in a little bit here. So this is Magmass. Magmass's final size ended up being a 21. So Magmass is, and it makes sense, Magmass is a giant volcano golem monster. So it makes sense that Magmass would be now the largest Necromold monster in the Necromolds universe. And I'm going to go ahead and smash one of these. So we've got our spell clay. I'm going to pull out this chunk. I'm going to rip a chunk off for Magmass. Oh, wow, that is a nice close-up. Okay, I think that, I'll add a little bit more. 21's a big number, so this is a big monster. That'll be good. So I'll go ahead and put that clay there, and then I'm going to go ahead and squish it. All right, and then let's see. It looks like I got it. Yep. And then these, you can kind of see on the edges here, the resin prints don't necessarily insert perfectly into these covers, so it's not a perfect fit, but it's good enough at least for prototyping. Now I'm going to go ahead and peel that open. Ooh, and you can see we've got the back of Magmass there, and hopefully you can see that it looks fantastic. So, since I had to go through and rebuild all the spellbooks, I took it as an opportunity to just add some little extra details and just make sure all of the details were coming through in the final molded monster. And sometimes that meant exaggerating a few of the details just to make sure that they read at this small size. And you can see there's a really clean cut line around the monster. And that was also part of this stage of going through and just finalizing these spellbooks and making sure that they were as high of quality as I wanted them to be. And it took a lot of time. Each spellbook probably took a day and a half, minimum. And that doesn't include the original steps, pre-Kickstarter campaign to get these models ready. But you can see that peeled off so easy. And this isn't even the injection mold, right? So the injection mold is going to be even cleaner than this. Let's go ahead and I'm going to peel this out. Let me do it with my other hand. All right, so there he is. Magmass, straight out of the mold. The largest series, or the largest known Necromold monster in existence. And one of the cool things with Magmass, obviously he's a giant hulking volcano golem. And Magmass's ability is in battle, it starts off with a great ranged attack. So it's able to make great ranged attacks and kind of shoot volcano rock out of its top. And then during the game, you can activate his magic ability and destroy his top. And I just twist it off like that, destroy his top, and now it no longer has a great ranged attack, but it has a great defense because lava is just pooling down from the blown top of Magmass. So Magmass is a really frightening creature, but takes up a lot of spell clay to summon. There he is, Magmass. All right, let's go ahead. Ooh, I shouldn't have crushed him. All right, he kind of got like semi-crushed, but he reads fine enough on camera. I'm going to save him later because I'm going to use these monsters I mold to show off the final artifacts after I show off these spellbooks. All right, next up. I should have put this on the table. This would be a little easier if it was all on the table. So next up are the Kracklings. So we've got the Crackling spellbook here. You can take a good look at that. And we've got both a large Crackling and a small Crackling in there. So there's two different models to this spellbook. So total with Series 1X, there were 6 new models in total. And so obviously, even that little monster took quite a bit of time to make sure that the model was as cool and clean as possible. It takes just as much time to do the little model as it does the big model and get them embedded in that spellbook. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and I gotta make sure I get the right clay quantity. I think this is probably good for the big guy. Let me rip this off. Very exciting. It's much more fun to do than it is to watch, but let me switch the camera back over. This part is fun to watch. This is satisfying. So I'm going to make the big guy first. So, yeah, there we go. Give it a nice squeeze. Get my clay in there. There we go. That's going to be nice. And then I'm going to peel it open. And there is the back of the Crackling, the large Crackling. I'm going to peel him off. There we go. And just like that, boom. Nice, clean monster mold right there. And let me peel out the large Crackling. There he is, the large Crackling. The Cracklings are a fun monster because we're still finalizing their abilities, so they're still going through some play testing, but essentially they can latch onto other Necromold monsters for a free ride. And the little Crackling can latch onto the big Crackling for a free ride. So they're a very mobile unit. And they also lend some support to other units. So there's the large Crackling. And again, these spellbooks went through the exact same process that I was describing for while I was molding Magmass. So it's all about making sure that all the details are coming through in the final spellbook, making sure that the final spellbook is conforming to the injection mold requirements, and then, of course, making sure that when using the spellbook and when molding these monsters, that they mold nice and clean, that none of the clay gets stuck in, really gets stuck in there, and that the outside, the excess clay, peels off nice and easy thanks to that, that cut line that I designed on all the monsters. So now we've got our little crackling right here. There's the back of him in the spell book. Let me go ahead and peel him out. There we go. So, little crackling, big crackling. You'll see them on the artwork for the card. You can find that on the Kickstarter campaign page. There's our little cracklings. Boom. All right, I'll set those down. I won't smash them yet. I will smash them later. And I'm going to go to our next spell book. And let's see. So cracklings are done. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Let's do this one. So this one is going to be Gorgoden. So let me go ahead and show you that spell book right there. All right, Gorgoden is a super cool, kind of like a terrarium monster, or a golem that's made out of a greenhouse and a terrarium. Some of the inspiration for Gorgoden. I'm going to go ahead and grab my clay, and there we go. Ooh, that's too much clay. Gorgoden is, I believe Gorgoden is a size 14, is what Gorgoden ended up being. So we made Gorgoden a size 14. And Gorgoden has this really cool ability where it essentially vacuums up smashed monsters and turns smashed monsters into gems. So it's a bit of like almost like a composting type of unit. So you can see we've got the back of Gorgoden right there. Ton of detail. You can even see some of like the statuary faces that come through in there. The vines and the flowers and the statue on top. All of that, of course, matches well with the illustration of Gorgoden. And then I'm going to go ahead and peel away that excess. Nice and clean. And let's go ahead and take a look at Gorgoden's front. Pop it right out. Nice and easy. And there is our Gorgoden. If you look on our Instagram or our Facebook page, you'll see some close-up shots of Gorgoden. And all of those details that you can see in those close-up shots really do show up in the mold. You got these little statue faces. It's all there. And there's like these little creatures inside this terrarium head of Gorgoden that if you look in there, you can kind of see hidden in there. Super, super fun model. And very fun to smash it on the battlefield. I'm going to set that one aside because we have 2 more monsters to show off tonight. The next one I'll do is Tormurack. So Tormurack, boom, there's Tormurack. Tormurack's a super cool monster sculpted by Sean Sutter, who is the designer and artist behind Relic Blade. So I collaborated with Sean on Tormurack as well as on the artifacts that I'm going to show off after showing off these monsters. So I've got my clay there. I think that looks like the right amount. This might be even more than I need, but that's okay. I think it'll be fine. Once you've done this enough, you start to get a good sense of, yeah, it's a lot of clay, how much clay you actually need to mold these monsters. And I have molded many Necromold monsters. All right, boom, let's peel that back. There's Tormurack. Again, part of the process I haven't talked about, and this is one of the most tedious parts of the process, is that the cut line on these spell books, the silhouette needs to match perfectly. So everything beyond this cut line, kind of drafts inward or goes into a downward angle towards the bottom here. You can't have any overhangs in an injection mold process. And when we're making these monster molds, we're essentially injection molding clay, is essentially what we're doing. So the design of Tormurack and all of our monsters conform with that principle. And it's especially tedious because when you sculpt monsters like this, you do it in a very organic way. And, trying to make the edges and the silhouettes line up as best you can. And then part of my process in bringing it into my computer software and getting it ready for injection molding is to make sure that these cut lines match up absolutely perfectly to give this nice, easy mold to pop out of the spell book. So let's pop him out right like that. And there's a little bit of excess right between his arms there that I'm just going to pop right out. There we go. Tormurack. You can see Tormurack again. Because I had to go through and rebuild these guys, these spellbooks, I took it as an opportunity to add some of those details, add some extra details and accentuate some details that might have been getting lost before. So there's Tormurack's back. You can see Tormurack has this little mud mump kind of up on a rack on his shoulders. And then he's got this little cage right here, which you'll see in Tormurack's illustration. And Tormurack is essentially a golem summoned from like a torture chamber or the dungeons below a castle. So Tormurack is stone and chains and just in pain, you know, which you can see in this little mud mump shell up on the rack here on Tormurack. All right, so I'm going to set him down, and we'll go to our final Necromold spellbook, which is the Blood Mump. There's the Blood Mump, and this one is actually included in the Necromolds Call to Arms expansion. So when you buy the expansion, you get the Blood Mump. And the Blood Mump size is exactly the size of 2 Mud Mumps combined. There's nothing in the game that really uses that fact yet, but I can think of a lot of fun home rules where maybe you take a couple Mud Mumps and you combine them during battle into a Blood Mump. I'm going to go ahead and rip off some clay here and get a Blood Mump molded. So the Blood Mump's size value or size rating in Necromolds is a 6. That might be a little too much clay. Or not a 6. What am I thinking? It's a 16. The Blood Mump is a 16. All right, there we go. That's enough clay. All right, so I've got my clay there. Let's go ahead and squish this last Series 1X Necromold monster and check out the Blood Mump. Peel it open. There we go. And look at that. I added quite a bit more detail just into some of like the rock formations and cracks of the Blood Mump, as well as deepen some of the scratches and battle damage that you can see on the Blood Mump shield. I'm going to go ahead and peel this excess off. You can see it comes off so clean, especially for just a prototyped resin print. So there's the back of the Blood Mump. I'm going to peel it out. And there we go, the front of our Blood Mump. He's got his shield, he's got his weapon, he's ready for battle. You can see his little scaly kind of rock arms and legs there. He's got his rusted helmet on. A little bit of damage to his shield and his sword. You can see some scratches from maybe some previous battles. The Blood Mump is the most humanoid monster that we have in Necromolds, which is kind of what I wanted him to be. I wanted the Blood Mump to look a bit like a knight, you know, but it's the Necromolds version of a knight. And the Mud Mumps and the Blood Mumps are Forsaken units, so they don't support anyone, but they're kind of very self-reliant. They're just overall really dependable units that could be mixed and matched into any Necromold army and be useful. So there's the Blood Mump. So that is all, or those are all of the Series 1X Necromold spellbooks. And once I actually have the final manufactured versions, which will look like this Insectomite spellbook here, once I get these for all of our new Series 1 monsters, I will do a full Mold-a-thon for the Series 1X monsters, just like I did for the original Series 1 monsters that you can find on our YouTube page. So, those are all the spellbooks. If you have any questions about that, feel free to leave a comment in this video. And again, it looks, you know, when you look at them, they look very similar to what you saw in the Kickstarter campaign video. But like I mentioned earlier, that last 10% of polish takes almost the same amount of time as, you know, the original build of these spellbooks. So a lot of polishing and prototyping have gone into making these models look as absolutely cool as they can. play as well as they can. They pull out of the molds nice and easy. You get those nice cut lines, and all of those are thanks to how much time I've been allowed to put into finalizing and prototyping these files. Now let's talk artifacts. So artifacts is the last thing, is the last plastic component that is custom in this game that I had to make sure was ready for injection molding and manufacturing. So let's see here. I'm going to switch over. Let's see. I'm going to switch over my camera. There we go. And I'm just going to start by showing off some of the ones that you're familiar with. And so let's get this one up here now. This is the crystal sword. And so there's the crystal sword. And again, because this one's printed in white, you don't really get all the details that you can see in person. But on all of these artifacts, you can see there's this little peg that I designed on the back that lets you stick it into your monster and it'll hold there so you can arm your monster. We'll use Magmass. During the game, you select your artifacts and then you're going to be arming your Necromolds with those artifacts. So now this Magmass is wielding the crystal sword. And one of the important things that I wanted to do during this plastics pass is just make sure that I was happy with the scale of all of these components. So I want to make sure that the swords felt like the right size for the models without being too small, because I wanted them large enough that you can easily remove them or place them during the game. So there's the crystal sword. I'm just going to show off some of these other ones that you're already kind of familiar with. The only thing that really changed was the sizing of some of these. Mostly just shrinking them to make sure that they scaled well with the Necromolds models. And I talk a little bit about that in the Kickstarter update. So there's that weapon. Here's the giant sling. It's kind of a slingshot made out of a giant's hand. And again, these aren't the final colors, but these prototypes show off the details really well. And these printed prototypes are printed using the manufacturing ready files. Oh, don't want to show that one yet. Here's Basalt's mask. That's a fun one. Basalt's mask. This artifact actually goes with Basalt's Necrocaster character. I'm just going to put that mask on Magmass. So we'll just go like that. And now Magmass is wearing Basalt's mask. And you can see I went through and added, just making sure that these little scratch marks and details were coming through in the final prototype prints. Let's see, what else haven't I showed off? This one's one of my favorites. This is our stone shield. So you've seen this before in the videos and on the pages. There's our stone shield. Then we've got the Fortune's hairpin. There we go. And that one, sticks right in the... This one doesn't have a peg on it because it's meant to just kind of be stuck right in the top of your monster. Almost like a little antenna, which brings you, hopefully, luck on the battlefield. What else do we got? That one's done. I talked about those. I think, let's see. There's 10 artifacts total, right? This one's the rat dagger. This is a fun one. So you got the little rat dagger there. And again, we'll arm our little Crackling with the rat dagger. There he is. So now our little Crackling is holding the rat dagger into battle, ready to bring victory for its Necrocaster. So I believe those are all of the artifacts that you have seen before. Now I'm going to show off 3 all-new artifacts that have never been seen before prior to this Kickstarter update. And if you remember, during the campaign, there are a list of stretch goals. And a lot of the stretch goals we blew through even before I had a chance to actually post them to the campaign page. And 3 of those stretch goals were to add new artifacts to the Call to Arms expansion. So originally we had 7 artifacts total, all with their own unique sculpts. And I wanted to add 3 more and bring that number up to 10. And luckily we broke those stretch goals. So I went through and the co-designer of the Call to Arms expansion, Kenny, and I developed a few more, a lot of prototyping, but we developed a few more artifacts that we think fit really well into this expansion and add a lot of fun play styles into the expansion. So I'm going to show those off now, those prototypes. The first one I'll show off is, we'll do this one. And let's put this one on our Crackling. So here's our little Crackling. The first one, and you'll see the illustrations for these on the Kickstarter update. This one is the Odd Mutation. So this is just kind of like a gruesome, kind of fleshy eye growth mutation that you stick on your Necromold anywhere. I like to put it on their back. I feel like kind of a back shoulder is a perfect spot for an Odd Mutation. And the Odd Mutation actually changes the support abilities of this particular unit. So now this Crackling with the Odd Mutation is an Abomination, which means it supports melee, ranged, and defense skills. It also increases the range that it can help other units through support. So basically this unit becomes a supercharged support unit thanks to the Odd Mutation. That one is a ton of fun to play because it lets you, really lets you customize, whatever spellbooks that you're using in your Necromold army. Odd Mutation. New artifact number 1. Let's see. New artifact number 2. I'll do this one. This one's fun. Who do I want to give this to? I'll give this to Gorgoden. New artifact number 2 is... There we go. The Explosive Shot. So you can see right there, we've got this kind of skull, demon skull looking bomb with a fuse on top. And this is the Explosive Shot artifact. And the Explosive Shot artifact makes it so that if this monster misses its ranged attack, then any monsters who are nearby that target, who are in close distance, will actually receive a wound. So those monsters will get wounded, in combat from that explosive shrapnel shot. So really cool artifact. It adds a lot of value to the monsters that just have weaker ranged attacks. So it lets you customize one of those units and just kind of boost the value of its ranged attack. So now that weak ranged attack that usually misses actually becomes an asset because it lets you wound all the monsters around your targeted monster. So that is the Explosive Shot. Check out the illustration on Kickstarter update number 6. Explosive Shot. All right. That was number 2. Finally, our third and last new artifact that's being introduced to Necromold's Call to Arms is... there we go. Is the Phasing Cap. So this little wizard's hat is the Phasing Cap. And as you can kind of see, it's decked out with wires and cables and doodads. And those actually make it so this Phasing Cap lets the unit who's wearing it phase out of, and this isn't the right word, but out of existence so that it can pass through enemy monsters or terrain pieces on the battle map. And it also lets the unit blink forward a medium distance, but it takes 2 wounds while doing so. And the coolest thing about the Phasing Cap is that it's a little hat that you get to put on your Necromold monsters. So I'm just going to put, there we go. I kind of smashed his face a little. But now I've got a little Tormurack who's wearing the Phasing Cap. Or, we can go ahead and grab our tiny Crackling from earlier. Maybe I'll put it kind of at an angle. There we go. And now our little Crackling is decked out with the Phasing Cap as well as the Rat Dagger. So now this little Crackling is a unit to be reckoned with. So the Phasing Cap, the Explosive Shot, and, Phasing Cap, the Explosive Shot, and our Odd Mutation are all of our new Series 1X Necromold's Call to Arms artifacts. Boom, there they are. So So, during the last month and a half, we've been working on getting these sculpts done for all 3 new artifacts, playtesting and designing their abilities, and then also getting the artwork done in the card art done for all 3 new artifacts. And I'm happy to report that with those artifacts and with all of the other plastics that I showed off this evening, all of our plastic files are ready for manufacturing. So by the time this video posts and the Kickstarter update posts, these files will all have been batched and sent to our manufacturing partner, Panda Games Manufacturing, for their team to review, approve, and eventually build steel molds from. So this closes off a huge part of my to-do list, kind of a whole category of tasks that I had surrounding these new artifacts, finalizing spellbooks, finalizing the other artifacts, finalizing the wound markers, finalizing the banner, which gave me an opportunity to add the new banner. So you can see that, between all of this plus the holidays, a lot has gotten done in the last month and a half. So I think I'll kind of finish this video off by talking a little bit about what's to come. But before I do that, I've got a few other things I want to cover. I'll come back to that later. So what's to come? Well, now that the plastic files are done with, my next month is dedicated to things like packaging design, finalizing all of the cards, all of the Necrocaster cards and stuff like that for the expansion. Like I said, finalizing the box for the expansion. We've been working on the Necromolds lore book, so finalizing the layout and design for that once that is finished with all those illustrations. And then there's just a whole host of other kind of odds and ends that are all graphic design and illustration related that are going to be completed over the next month. So that's really my full-time task, is to get all that stuff ready for Panda Games. So when they get back from after Chinese New Year ends, which is February 1st, I will hopefully have all of the files, ready to send to them so they can get started approving them, finalizing their own prototypes, and then starting the manufacturing process. And once we get to that, that is like the finish line is now in sight once we get to that moment. So the next month, there's a lot of work to be done, but I'm really excited to work on all of it. And once it's done, then we are on the home stretch to fulfillment, which I think is pretty exciting. So thank you very much for watching this video. A few little odds and ends I wanted to mention. We recently had Jack. I don't know if Jack, if you're watching this video, you recently bought some caster rings from the website. So right before I sat down to film this, I went and drew out your 3 caster rings that you grabbed from the website. So here they are. These are headed your way. Thank you very much for the support. And I hope all 3 rings are unique. I hope they are all the rad designs that you are hoping that they are. So these are on their way to you, Jack. Thank you very much for the support. And then thank you to all of our backers who helped make kind of everything possible so far. Whether you're a Kickstarter backer, whether you're a late pledge backer, if you're a late pledge backer, if you're checking out Necromolds and you haven't pledged yet, the late pledges are going to be open until I close surveys, which is going to be in early February, hopefully February 1st. So check out the Necromolds late pledge page. If you're a Necromold backer, thank you so much for watching this video and thank you for your support. If you have any questions about the Necromolds plastics, about the illustrations you see on update number 6, about what's to come, about help with your order, feel free to send me a message. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or of course our Kickstarter page or Twitter. And I'm always the one to respond to you. So when you shoot me an email, when you send me a question, you're hearing back from me. Thank you all very much for the support. Thanks for checking out this video, and I will talk to you next time, which will be when I have finished all of the Necromolds assets for our manufacturer. And that will be a very fun and very celebratory video. I will see you all then.